India is free. India is free. What a miracle that independence can be without war. History will tell you it has never happened before. India is free. What a miracle.
Thus wrote Dr. Chia Lun Lu, Chinese ambassador to India. He presented his poem to the President of the Constituent Assembly, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, on the intervening night of 14th and 15th of August 1947. Dr. Rajendra Prasad acknowledged it at the Constituent Assembly.
Accepted with thanks a poem composed by His Excellency Dr. Chia Lun Lu, the Chinese ambassador.
Indeed, it was a miraculous freedom movement that stirred the subcontinent. A freedom struggle that showed that the doctrine of non-violence works for justice, liberty, and liberation. It displayed the efficacy of pitting the sole force of the Satyagraha against the brute force of the oppressor.
Shanti ahimsa ke astron se Gandhi ji ne aaye azad.
Martin Luther King, the American civil rights activist, once remarked,
I am more convinced than ever before that the method of non-violent resistance is the most potent weapon available to oppressed people in their struggle for justice and human dignity. In a real sense, Mahatma Gandhi embodied in his life certain universal principles that are inherent in the moral structure of the universe. Today we no longer have a choice between violence and non-violence. It is either non-violence or non-existence.
every story has a hero. Some stories have several heroes. The freedom fighters of our independence movement are the heroes of this extraordinary story. They staked their very existence to win freedom based on principles that have universal application and external validity. Our freedom fighters, the heroes of our freedom story, relive and share their personal journeys on the road to freedom.
I offered Satyagraha during individual Satyagraha movement for the first time in 1941.
Chaudhry Ranbir Singh served as a member of the Constituent Assembly in 1947. This freedom fighter had the distinction of being the member of 7 different houses of legislative bodies.
We were required by the Congress leadership that we should inform the Deputy Commissioner where I want to offer Satyagraha in connection with the individual Satyagraha. I wrote a letter to the Deputy Commissioner, and instead of coming to me, they arrested me on that very day. And I was sentenced 1 year rigorous imprisonment.
I was absorbed in the INA as a soldier, so I was in the administrative section, which they called Azad Hind Dal, and a civil rank was given to me, that is Dalpati of the Azad Hind government, moved to Rangoon. So I was there. The tide of the war turned in favor of Britain and her allies. So we had to retreat.
N. Parameswaran Nair was a civil administrator of the Indian National Army, INA.
3 officers were selected, Dhillon, Shahnawaz Khan and Sehgal. They were tried at the Red Fort, known as the INA trial. The Manchester Guardian, a famous newspaper in England, at that time put It is not the three officers on trial, the three officers are not criminals, but the administration is now in the box, being tried by the people of India. So the three officers were acquitted.
സ്വാതന്ത്ര്യം തന്നെ അമൃതം, സ്വാതന്ത്ര്യം തന്നെ ജീവിതം, പാരതന്ത്ര്യം മാനികൾക്ക് മൃതിയേക്കാൾ ഭയാനകം.
Sitanshu Das, journalist, author and freedom fighter, was born in Sylhet, part of then undivided Bengal.
I recall we children used to shout, "Simon, go back." We did not understand what it meant. 42 movement, I myself of course participated. But before that I had been arrested in 1941. That was when I had just joined the college in Calcutta, had become secretary of the college union. That was the time when, I don't know, at the meeting of the Students' Federation, executive committee meeting, there was a raid, police raid, and they rounded up the student leaders. One of them, although they had no warrant against me, rounded up was me. Then they searched my house, they found some anti-war leaflets. They took me to what was called, very notorious police lockup called Lord Sinha Road.
The civil disobedience movement of 1930, described by Mahatma Gandhi as right against might, galvanized the people across the country. Gandhi launched the Dandi March to break the salt law. Amrutbhai Modi, secretary of Sabarmati Ashram Preservation and Memorial, along with Thomas Titus, son of Devarathundra Titus, the Dandi Marcher explains why Gandhiji chose salt to launch the civil disobedience movement with.
Salt Satyagraha was inspired by God. Gandhi had no idea. Once Mahadev Desai read some news from the newspaper and he mentioned this matter to the Gandhi, 400% tax was on the salt. And salt is the necessity of every person, every man, animal.
But we Indians cannot make salt. We Indian cannot sell salt. So he decided to break the salt law.
Titus was one of the 78 ashramites chosen by Gandhi to march to Dandi from Sabarmati in 1930. Thomas Titus, his son, recalls the salt march experience of his father.
My father has said that Gandhiji told them strictly all along the way, you should behave well with the villagers, have morning and evening prayers, teach the villagers how to live in a clean and neat environment, and have whatever food they can afford, and whatever dry fruit they give you, you must eat that. This is how they started the march, and they continued like that. Started from Sabarmati, walking almost 10 kilometers in the morning, 10 kilometers in the evening. And they went on to Aslali, Anand, Surat, Navsari, and then on to the beach at Dandi.
The National Gandhi Museum, Delhi, has the rarest of the rare sound bite of the Salt March of 1930. Here we have it for you. Pearl S. Buck, American author and Nobel laureate in literature, says Gandhi swayed masses by adopting issues that affected them directly.
He knew his people. When he talked of salt and of the spinning wheel and of nonviolence. But these were the ideas which his people, the simplest of them, could grasp. Salt was a daily need. The spinning wheel gave them a symbolic freedom from the machines of empire. And nonviolence was part of their ancient religion. And Gandhi would have failed completely had he not used such means.
Frontier Gandhi, Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan believed that Gandhi had divinity and selfless love that made masses follow him.
उनमें खुदा परस्ती थी, सदाकत थी, मोहब्बत थी, यही वजह थी लोगों पर उसके कहने का असर होता.
Mahatma Gandhi mobilized the masses by using railways. He travelled throughout the length and breadth of the country to empower, to make the freedom struggle a mass movement, says Sandeep Silas, author and former bureaucrat with Indian Railways.
For 4 long years, from 1915 to 1919, he travelled in the third-class compartment of Indian trains. In fact, his strategy of the freedom struggle was formed during his travels. Gandhi travelled and the Mahatma was born on a third-class compartment of an Indian train.
When Lord Dalhousie established the railways in India, he was unconsciously laying the foundation for a pan-India system of connecting and communicating. Every whistle of the locomotive was a call for liberty, a cry for freedom. Railway historian G.D. Patwardhan narrates how the railways became a symbol of protest against the British.
People looked upon the railway as a British affair, and to travel without a ticket was considered to be a challenge. There is an anecdote that when a marriage party of some 25 was fined on the spot by a railway magistrate for travelling without tickets, they gladly paid the money and continued on their journey.
V. Kalyanam, personal secretary to Mahatma Gandhi, shares an interesting experience of a train journey with the latter.
He always travelled third. He would buy a ticket. Only 3 or 4 of us would go with him. But the entire compartment would be at his disposal. Nobody would get into it. When I joined him, he was travelling. The train had gone nearly 100 kilometers. I don't know what made him ask me, have you bought the ticket? I said, no sir, I have joined you only now. I don't know that you buy ticket. I thought you are travelling free in a compartment given to you by British. No, when the station comes, ask this station superintendent to come and see me. Whenever Gandhi travelled, the newspapers used to mention where the train would stop, at which junction. So there would be a big crowd of 10,000 people. People know that the Gandhi is travelling by the train and the train would stop there. And even the station superintendent would be in that crowd. So I went into the crowd. So he came to him. Gandhi said, this boy, referring to me, he has not bought the ticket. So that man replied, sir, you are such a great man. Why should you buy the tickets? Is this the way you allow all great men to travel free? I'll report to the railway authorities that you are treating people like this. You will lose your job. Then he got the money from me and gave me a receipt. He didn't want to travel without tickets.
What has sports to do with the freedom movement and politics? Hockey legend Balbir Singh Sr. shares an anecdote.
Sir John Bennett recruited me. How? I never wanted to join police. I had passed my BA. I had joined MA English at Khalsa College, Amritsar. So when I came to know that police people want me to join police, my father was a freedom fighter. So I left college, ran away to Delhi, from where I had invitation, joined Central PWD. They had a good hockey team. So during my stay with them, we won 2 All India tournaments and my name appeared in the press. It was seen by Sir John Bennett. He sent a police party. I was handcuffed and brought in those handcuffs to Jalandhar cantonment to put my fingerprints with pressure by force.
Balbir Singh Sr. adds, Britain, gold medalist in hockey since its introduction to the Olympics, did not send hockey teams to the Games from 1928 to 1948. The reason? India began to send her hockey team to the Olympics from 1928. Britain could not accept a defeat of its hockey team at the hands of India, its colony.
India had won 28, 32, 36. England did not participate. And before that, England had won 1908, 1920. India did not participate. When India won 48, 52, 56, independent India, Azad Bharat, I thought of my father because he was a freedom fighter.
Swaraj is my birthright and I shall have it, declared Bal Gangadhar Tilak. Tilak and his supporters were considered as extremists in the Congress. Indian National Army and Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, the supreme commander of the INA, carried on the legacy of Tilak.
This is Subhash Chandra Bose speaking to Indians in East Asia. No amount of civil disobedience or of sabotage or of revolutionary terrorism can be of any avail. If therefore we want to expel British power from India, we have to fight the enemy with his own weapons. The task of liberating India is ours and ours alone.
Colonel H.S. Dhillon, one of the accused in the famous Red Fort trial of the INA soldiers, recalls words of Netaji that would produce goosebumps in us.
5th of July 43, he took over the command INA. After the review, his words to us were, "Today is the proudest day of my life. It is the highest honor and the greatest reward to be the first soldier of the Army of Liberation. I have nothing to give you except hunger, thirst, forced marches, and death. But if you follow me in life and death, as I am confident that you would, then I will lead you to victory." We can't say who amongst us will see India free, live to see India free. It is enough that India shall be free and we shall give our all to make her free. Inqilab Zindabad.
Bishambarnath Pandey, freedom fighter and parliamentarian, says the spirit and morale of INA soldiers were very high.
For 13 days they ate boiled grass, boiled leaves of the trees. They declared the grass of free India is better than the bread and butter of the British slavery.
भूखे भी लड़े प्यासे भी लड़े और मौत से फिर भी हम ना डरे जय हिंद का नारा गूंज उठा हाथों में तिरंगा थाम लिया.
Netsutso Theo, former minister of Nagaland, as a child, had seen Bose face to face in the early 1940s. He draws a word picture of Subhash Chandra Bose.
I have seen and I have experienced Subhash Chandra Bose. I do not know his name. My brother-in-law, who was Dobashi, who stay with him, they communicate his name, Subhash Chandra Bose. I saw him because he came to my village. Why did he come to my village? The reason is that Japanese, they came to the village without any supply of food. So they used to tax the local people, collecting paddy, collected the cows, the chicken, and this kind of treatment displeased the local people. They protested. As soon as he got the report, he came by horse, and he was neat and clean in his dress, having specs, and his appearance still remain fresh in my mind. Very handsome, and his complex is very fair. Look like Kashmir apple, ripe apple. I was a boy, about 10 years of age.
Captain Lakshmi Sehgal was a physician who joined the INA. She headed its all-women regiment, the Rani Jhansi Regiment. According to her, Netaji knew that the British would quit India once World War II ended.
Yes, because we broke the backbone of the British Army, which was the Indian Army. They had conquered us and they ruled us because of the strength of the Indian Army. And when the Indian Army revolted, then I knew that the British were finished. So I was quite convinced when I joined the INA that India would get independence.
As if to prove the prediction of Netaji true, Britain initiated action to leave India at the end of World War II. The elected Constituent Assembly of India took over the reign of India at its midnight session on the intervening night of 14th and 15th August 1947. India awoke to life and freedom as the clock at the hall of the Constituent Assembly session struck 12. It was sunrise at midnight for India, says Chaudhry Ranbir Singh, an eyewitness to the transfer of power ceremony as member of the Constituent Assembly.
We were very happy. We were fighting against an empire where sun never set. So we were happy that at least that era has come to an end. And today we are also very happy that sun does not rise in British Empire. Of course, Britain country sun is there, but not the British Empire.
Beyond the Constituent Assembly Hall, in the vastness of the nation, the momentous changes heralded by the chimes of midnight found its echoes in jubilant cheers and joyful celebrations. It was all the festivals of the land of festivals rolled into one. The festival of freedom, says Sitanshu Das.
What shall I say? It was divine. And what is more memorable to me, I was in Bombay that day. I shall never forget till my life departs from my body. That scene, I shall never see it again. How the whole of Bombay was on the street on that day, on that evening. Whole Bombay was lit up. While I walked, I saw people. Everybody is saying Jai Hind to each other. They did not know each other, but they shouted at each other happily. Nobody's crying, nobody unhappy. I mean, it was a scene I don't think I shall see again. I never shall see again a scene like that.
But for INA veteran Colonel H.S. Dhillon, it was a night of mixed feelings, of happiness and sadness due to partition and pangs of separation.
Our hearts were heavy. We wanted undivided India. We took it as a personal failure when India was divided. On that night, my parents and others who were on the west of the newly created border, I was cut off. Had no means to find out whether they are dead or alive. It was eventually after some weeks that after search, I found them in a refugee camp.
The Indian freedom movement was a unique experiment that gained worldwide acceptance as role model. When the world was war-torn and was suffering from imperial and colonial terror, India showed a light of hope to humanity. Nobel laureate for peace, Archbishop Desmond Tutu of South Africa, did not mince words to acknowledge the contribution of India and Gandhi in the anti-apartheid struggle.
India, that was in the forefront of the anti-apartheid movement, we are free today very largely because of the prodigious contributions of Mahatma Gandhi and of his motherland, India. We owe you, Mahatma Gandhi, who played such a signal role in the defeat of the British Raj and the eventual victory that saw India independent in 1947. May I therefore say on behalf of millions and millions of my compatriots, thank you, Mahatma Gandhi. Thank you, Mother India, for helping to free us.
Lokatantram yadiyam dhruvam sundaram nyayatantram sada sarva kalyanadam rashtrametat sada vardhatam modatam.
We may never know how it feels like to live in a free country if it was not for the sacrifice of our forefathers. Today, they deserve a big salute from us. We walked the road to freedom 75 years ago. Independence entails enjoying freedom and empowering others too for it. The values, ideas, principles and dreams of our freedom struggle is a guiding light for us in the 21st century, observes political scientist, writer and former director of Sabarmati Ashram, Professor Trideep Suhrud.
I don't think that anyone would say truth is not significant in 21st century. Are we all going to be a community of liars in the 21st century? Certainly not. Are we all going to give up all our commitment to non-violence in 21st century? Certainly not. The more violent we become as societies and states, the greater the yearning is for non-violence. Can we say that we have dealt with the question of poverty for all times to come? Certainly not. So long as there are poor, and so long as that we as a society and a state remain committed to what Gandhi said of wiping every tear from every eye, Gandhi would remain relevant. So long as questions of dignity of communities and individuals need to be asked, aspect of freedom struggle which sought to reform Indian society from within would remain important.
India has been one of the most vibrant and colourful cultures upon the earth for many millennia. Let us make her prosperous once again. We are not just a nation, but a treasure to the world. May the words of revolutionary freedom fighter Bhagat Singh echo in our ears for all ages to come.
May the sun in his course visit no land freer, happier, more lovely than this our own country. Jai Hind!